This is NEGOTIATEx TV.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the NEGOTIATEx podcast. We are continuing our conversation with Caitlin Meredith, mediator, coach, and trainer. If you haven't already checked out part A of the show, be sure to do that first. Let's jump into the conversation with Caitlin. You coach folks through various transitions, moving, new job, leaving relationships, etc. Transitions are part of everyone's lives. What key pieces of advice would you give to a listener experiencing significant personal or professional change?
When I'm working with people, what I notice and for myself is that when we're going through a transition, there's a lot of muscling through it. We're every moment we're supposed to be active, whether it's reading a self-help book or getting moving boxes or calling the lawyer or whatever. In our minds, it's like a productivity hotspot. We're supposed to be producing all the time because this transition is happening and there's a really big to-do list that comes along with most transitions. And I often find that as amazing as I am, one of the biggest benefits of a coaching session is the allocated time to think about this and the allocated time to reflect and think about where I am. What is my status? What's going on for me right now? And of course, therapy is a really great place for that too. But it's then tagging on, where am I right now? What actually is my priority so that I can make a realistic to-do list around the reality right now? What's actually urgent? When you're in a transition time, everything can feel urgent, or you're so overwhelmed, you're paralyzed. So, everything's urgent and you cannot do anything. So a lot of it is just carving things down into just simple steps that you don't need a rocket scientist to tell you, let's just do the 3 things you can do today. And whatever those, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 tool. I'm not going to go into any more of these number tools. Those just happen to be the 2 that I have that are numbers, but let's allocate time. And it's usually not the time before when you're trying to go to bed. That's the really productive, reflective time. That's just getting you in a wired loop that really none of us need and isn't helpful. But to have a conversation that allows you to do the reflection, to have someone reflecting back what they're seeing from you right now to help you clarify your thoughts so that you can decide what the priorities are for right now and moving forward. And I think often the transition itself, the movement kind of takes over and you feel sort of secondary to it. And I try to switch that around a little bit so there's intention around what's on that to-do list right away. I don't know if that answered your question.
As I'm listening, I think about this. It feels like a cycle, a vicious cycle. And again, Nolan and I have experienced transition in our own life, whether it's personal or professional, but certainly, transitioning from the military into a whole different career. But I feel like sometimes that to-do list, it's so burdensome that it almost paralyzes you. And so then it's really hard. So it's I feel overwhelmed. How am I supposed to have any time to pause, step back, reflect? At the same time, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm frozen and stuck. And so I just, how working out through that just seems like such a difficult task.
It's so lonely. When you're going through it, you really feel like you're the only one in this situation. Everyone else has it figured out or moved on. Any little thing from a friend or a former colleague that shows some degree of success in their life, you're I've already however many decades, I blew it. I got to start from scratch now. And it can be hard to sort of see what acted as building blocks for where you can go. Even if you're starting over, that everything that came from before is actually going to set you up and you're going to be okay. But it's when you don't exactly know what the future holds, and in parentheses, thank God, because life would be so boring if you did. But the surprises can be good and bad. When you're in those transition points, even knowing what success should feel like, because I think, I'm building a new business. Well, what does a successful business look like? It looks like financial security. It looks like tons of clients. It looks like, turning people down. You have this, but you don't know what is a version of success after a year of trying to start a business. And how can I celebrate those and notice them? Because if all you're waiting for is that like success picture, that is so demoralizing the whole way there. And you probably will give up because it takes a long time to get to that place. So even in building my own business and working with clients, it's like, what are we going to look at 3 months from now and be like, you know what? That's not nothing. That you are in a different place than you were when we started this, and in some meaningful ways, but they aren't the big like neon light ways that we're sort of thinking at the end of this journey. So helping someone define what are these mini successes going to look like too.
And then celebrating them.
And celebrating them. I mean, yeah, that's when a Haagen-Dazs ice cream bar and It's It. Oh, you guys don't have It's It. It's It is a California, maybe just a San Francisco Bay Area thing. But yeah, no, I always designate like, what is the thing? What is that celebration thing going to be? And it can be like for working moms of 3, it's going to be like their own whatever bag of M&Ms in their room after the kids go to sleep, like something that whatever your version is, we need to get that.
And it's got to be in the room so the kids don't see it, right? You got to have your little secret spot you sneak off to. But what you're saying is so important, right? We need to have those. We need to have those long-term goals that we're trying to aim for, and that measure of success so critical. And I think sometimes in the midst of that, we forget to build those milestone objectives in, and we forget to kind of congratulate ourselves. And that little pat on the back of, hey, look where you are now a few weeks. Now, we're not to the end state yet, but look where we are a few weeks in and the changes we've made. This is great. Yeah. We're moving. And then I think the celebration's so important. Now, many of our listeners are mid to senior level managers who frequently find themselves in the midst of disagreements or conflict between team members. Many of them don't have any formal mediation training, and yet they're being asked to mediate fairly regularly. Okay, there's 3 questions here, Caitlin, but we've warmed you up, so I know you're ready for the 3 questions.
I'm ready. I got my pen.
So, as a professional mediator, what are the most crucial skills or things these managers need to get right?
Okay.
2, should mediation training be mandatory for all mid-managers and higher? And 3, when is it time to call in the cavalry and get a professional involved?
Okay. I wrote them down, but you'll still have to repeat them. Okay.
All right.
The first one, listening. Truly being able to do just what you were talking about. The struggle is like, listen without problem solving, without anything, is like slowing down, hearing this person is having an experience and it's intense. So what can my job be is just to be like, hey, I want to hear about your experience. And say this, I want to let you know, I'm not going to try to solve any of these problems. This is a part in this is a conversation I want to just have so I can really understand what's going on for you. So you can frame it from the outset, like, I'm not going to fix this at the end. I just right now want to understand what's going on with you. I think if you do nothing else but that, I often am hired in workplaces to do like a workplace mediation. And in some cases, I'll talk to people, not always, or they'll say, I think we need a mediation, but we don't know among who. There's just a team that's really unhappy. And so I'll talk to people. And often, or it happens that just by having a session with me where they're able to really clarify their thinking and explain it, they actually figure out a few things for themselves and the dynamic shifts. And so I think it's very easy to sort of discount like venting. We just need people to vent. That pisses me off, because when I'm really mad, I don't think of it as just like venting. Once in a while, I'll be like, I just need to vent and I'll get over it because I know I'm all under-resourced. I'm really tired. I'm hungry. I'm whatever. So this isn't like serious, like we need to process this. But if something's really upset me about the tone of an email and that's like the 4th time I've gotten that, I don't just need to vent. I need a thought partner to help me separate the threads of, in that sort of hierarchy. This is upsetting to me, but I could deal with it. But then when someone else was CC'd from another team, that was humiliating. And that's where my line was drawn. So to help me clarify what are the factors here that if I was going to have a conversation with this person, that I'd really want to have had the practice to think through. So I'm not just like throwing everything out there and then later being like, I actually didn't really care about that part. Or I didn't even mention this other thing, which was actually the thing that really hurt my feelings. So being a thought partner, being the listener, and helping someone clarify, I think if you do nothing else, that is more than most managers provide. It's sort of a version of work it out among yourself, when my parents would yell that to me and my brother in the back seat, like, just work it out. I'd be like, we obviously can't work it out. We're just fighting the whole time. Okay, so that's the first one, listening, right? Second question.
Should mediation training be mandatory?
I mean, do I get to make that decision? I think yes, they should have to do it. Actually, no, I don't think it should, because I think there is a huge benefit to having a third party neutral come in and be there for a real mediation. And so I think a facilitated roundtable conversation where people are able to have a conversation might be the first level before an actual mediation. But I think there's a lot of value of having a third party neutral that doesn't have already a previous relationship, because those will inevitably be not the same with both people that are there. There could be more of a history, positive or negative, with one side or the other. So even the perception that the manager can't be neutral fully, I think is really important. So mediation training per se, I would say no, but certainly in active listening, the value, something I talk about in my trainings a lot is you have to go slow before you can go fast. And I think we all want to go fast, just fast. And so it can seem like kind of like a waste of time or ineffective to just have a listening session with somebody that works for you that's having a problem. And I think just training around how important those are alone, you don't have to even get into like developed mediation skills, would go a long way. So mediation per se, not necessarily. I mean, if they want it and their company will pay for it, go for it, because you could do it for another team too. So another idea, like Intel has in-house mediators. And so they train a bunch of their staff who then also serve as mediators.
What would be the signal for when I should, as a manager, go from a listening session, which I feel very comfortable, perhaps leading, to bringing in, whether it's in-house or out-of-house, a mediator to say, this is beyond me?
I think that so like it depends. I think where okay, well, one I already talked about is like if one or both parties in this conflict start to feel like the manager is taking sides, or if they like just aren't able to be unbiased or doesn't feel safe sharing because they're their boss. And so they're like, yeah, I get that this is confidential. I get that we can say whatever, but like, is that actually true? So if you're delving into a place where people actually can't have open conversations because of your hierarchical position, then it's not serving anyone. So that would be one area. Another might be where you yourself are, as the manager, your buttons are very much pushed by one or both people or by the conflict itself. And so it's too much to ask of yourself. You are juggling enough, and to ask yourself to take this role in addition to all the other things that you're doing, and to show up in the way that a third party neutral really needs to show up to support both people. That might just not be part of your capability, to no fault of your own, but really to take that seriously. What resources do I have internally right now? What buttons are being pushed by these people? Am I using this as a proxy to kind of not retaliate, but like, I agree that party A is the problem here. And so am I using this subconsciously to reinforce? That's not going to be a successful mediation if you're really hoping that a common solution can be fought for. And I think another example might be when there's such a long history and you've been present for it but haven't intervened, and now you might have lost some trust about like being able to intervene, and then it might be good. I'm sure there's a million others, but those are the three that are on the top of my head.
Well, and as you mentioned trust, and going back to before talking about connection building and relationship building, and then even as you were using some examples just now around things that would make someone angered or humiliated or whatever the feeling is, can you talk a little bit about how you navigate emotions and feelings in a mediation session when they're strong and they're out there, and that is such an uncomfortable thing to kind of lean into? How do you recommend managing emotions and feelings?
Oh, I don't manage them. I want them out. If someone's on their best behavior and being polite, I'll have no idea if actually what the resolution we come to, they're just like phoning it in to get out of the conversation, or if it's something that they really agree with. Because if it doesn't make sense to them, or if it doesn't align with what's important to them, they're not going to follow it. So having people muffle emotions or not show up as who they are or what's important to them, I don't think serves the mediation process. That said, giving people support and help. I find more often people can't name a feeling. They don't know. It's like big black bad cloud in stomach. That's the feeling. And
right.
So through talking and attentive listening, I try to help guess at some feelings and have a real, like, almost like brainstorming session. And if you say like, Nolan always like, what do you do all the time? Nolan is always interrupts and takes over. We have a guest on our podcast, he always interrupts, and I can never, and you didn't say a feeling in that. But when I'm reflecting back, I can say, sounds like that experience would be really like frustrating. And also, you said maybe humiliating because a guest is there. Like, am I getting that right? So I might try out a few feelings, and you can say like, no, I'm not humiliated. Like, I know he's not trying to bear it, but we're going to try to guess and figure that out together. And so that you can start naming some of those feelings. So it's not that I don't want the feeling and emotion present, is that I want to help you be able to like know which one it is. There's a big difference between fear, sadness, fear of losing a job, or whatever. Let's tease those out. So for me, that's much more important than being like, you're too upset, we can't talk. Like, hey, let's talk. I see you're upset.
Yep.
Let's figure, like, can I ask you a few questions about where that's coming from? And I know people get very worried about therapy. Like, I'm not a therapist, but talking about feelings as a human, it's not just in the realm of therapy. Like, lawyers have to do it, business people have to do it, journalists definitely have to do it. It's part of the human condition.
Sorry, it's a tropical storm outside, so it's a thunderstorm.
Where are you?
I'm in Florida, so Cooper's terrified of lightning and thunder, and so
sweetheart,
he's gonna hang out for a minute while we keep going through this. No,
I endorse it.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think kind of covering and putting labels on feelings is something definitely I struggle with. So whenever we do have a difficult conversation, it's not anything that I can articulate. Yeah. And so I think that is something that I can definitely work on.
Nolan, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think when I'm upset, I'm hyper articulate and I can narrate the feeling like it's the ticker tape. I'm like, and now I'm pissed, and now I'm whatever. And so when you and I are in an argument and you're not telling me your feelings, I feel like you're actively withholding that information from me, right, to like mess with me. And like as part of like shunning me. And so it can escalate me even more. I'm like, oh my God, just tell me, okay, what do I need to do? I need to slow down. What I first need to do is understand that you don't actually know. The reason you're not sharing it with me and that you might need extra time is so that you can understand yourself better. And then I can calm down, because it's not like an act of aggression towards me, you not telling me what your actual feeling is. And I see this get played out a lot. We have different personality types. We have different conflict styles. We have different access to our feelings because of family of origin, because of whatever. So there's a lot of variables at play here. And the idea that feelings couldn't, like, I'm sure when someone would be like, let's have a conversation, but we're not going to let feelings. Nolan's like, yes, I won't have to dig and try to find out my feelings. But I have a feeling, another feeling. I have another feeling that I'm going to tell you about, that whatever resolution we came to, if it didn't speak to what your underlying feelings were, Nolan, it wouldn't be a successful one at the end, whatever success means. So I know they make people uncomfortable, but we can try. We're just practicing each time, right? It's not the final. It's just a practice.
Yeah.
That's right. So this has been tremendously fun conversation. You obviously have a great sense of humor. Is that intentional? And is there a role for humor in conflict resolution?
No, but I thought I couldn't be in conflict resolution because my personality, because I always want to laugh at stuff. Like, I thought it was a liability, like, don't invite me to your funeral. But I've also, you guys know, as being in the military, like, the more extreme situations you're in, the more you rely on humor with the people that you're in it with. And so for me, it's such an essential connector, and my favorite people make me laugh. So I thought I'd have to turn it down. And I have to say, as a mediator, I'm about at 40% personality, not without humor, but because it's not about me. Like, as a trainer, I have to be about 120% personality if I'm going to be there. So, podcast, somewhere in between. So it's not that the humor is like this tool that I'm like, ooh, now's time for a joke. It's realizing I have to be my whole self in the room, or I'm fake, I'm phony. And so if I can't I have to, if someone's sad, I'd like to think I don't have a pathological need to be like a class clown or anything, but it was such a relief to think I don't have to turn off all of the parts of my personality that make me me. And in fact, it could be actually useful when there's tense situations. Although, as I'm inadvertent, I just was doing a divorce mediation. It was a kind of a tense moment on Zoom, and I have a Mac, and they had just instituted the new whatever. And I did something when someone said something really sad, and it made the fireworks go off. We laughed. Oh, did we laugh? It did really, it showed how humor can really cut into a hard moment, but I would never do that on purpose. I don't know how I triggered it, but to say no matter what people are going through, there is something very human about that, just about sadness and anger. There's humor there too.
Oh, that's nice. All right, you mentioned your podcast that you co-host. It's called Women on the Verge of a Financial Breakthrough. I'd love to give our listeners a sense of what you discuss. So let me just read off a few of the titles. There's what WTF is an annuity. Will the election F up my investment strategy? What should teens know about finance? So just as a side note here, Nolan, we're going to need to hire Caitlin to come help with some creative titles for some of our sessions. All right, tell us about this podcast. Why'd you start it? What do you hope it accomplishes?
I had a newborn baby, and I was desperate to get out of the house. And I was 39 at that point. And my neighbors down the street said that they would babysit my daughter if I wanted to go take a class. I thought the only justifiable reason to ask for free babysitting once a week was a class, not just I just need to go out and whatever. So I was I'd really like to take an adult education class at UT. I was living in Austin at the time. And so I said, what night would work for them? Tuesday. So I look at the schedule for continuing. And the only class was investing for beginners. And I was what? Not just a disinterest, a passionate dislike for the person who would hold that class, for the people that would go to it, that it would be even in the universe of options for adult education. I was so not into it, but I was weighing free babies, getting out of that, well, I'll just go. I'll sit there for the first 15 minutes. I'll go get a drink. Nobody will know. I'll be doing it, but I won't. So I came in, and I thought it would be taught by some 70-year-old man with a tweed coat named Ned talking about taxes and something, and just be oh my God. And at the front was this sparkling woman who was laughing and excited. And I was am I in the wrong class? So I was intrigued. Like, she's somebody I'd want to be friends with. What is she doing here? And she had everyone go around the room and say, like, what are you looking for in this class? And everyone else had really good answers, like, well, I'm going to retire in 5 years and I want to make sure that I know I've had a financial advisor, or like, I have my first job and I want to know how to invest, or, something good. And I was so sleep deprived, newborn, that I was just like, this was the only night I could get free babysitting. Which she was charmed by, and also like, oh, that's a first, like someone coming to my class for that. So I stuck it out, and through it, like, it was like learning a new language. And with her, it was so much fun. And I set my sight on being friends with her. And when I do that, I have a strategy, and it worked, and we're friends. So she invited me through that to a group she had started called the Austin Women's Investing Group, that had started out as just a bunch of women in a living room talking about what is investing and how do we do it. She is now a financial advisor, an investment advisor, and like has her own firm. All of our conversations since becoming friends are me calling it and being like, what the F is an arbitrage? What the hell is a Roth? What the hell? Like, a very aggressive, like, I just like, oh my God, what more adulting am I going to have to do? Like, will it ever end? And so during the pandemic, after one of those calls, I'm like, you know what we need to do? Partly because I forget what she tells me. And so I have to re-ask, and I'm embarrassed about that. So I was like, if we record it, I can re-ask her all the questions. I'm always looking for a cover, right? For like the curiosity and for like not remembering.
Yeah.
And she was game. So all of those titles are actual questions when I get on the phone or a text. I'm like, is an IPO? Why is Airbnb asking me about an IPO? And so it's been a really fun thing that I'm excited to know more about. And also my favorite episodes are where she goes into depth about a topic, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to know any more about that. Like, that is actually like, okay, I've heard the definition once. Doesn't concern me. Moving on. I'm not trying to like be a stockbroker. I'm just trying to like get through and plan a financial future. So it's been very fun. Yes.
Cool. Very, very cool. Very fun. Very helpful too. So
Absolutely. And we'll have a link for that in the description if anyone wants to check it out. Really appreciate your time today, Caitlin. We've covered a variety of things. Do you have a final thought that you'd like to leave with listeners navigating conflict in their lives?
Just that it's really hard, and also you can do it. Like, I never want to minimize how hard it is and how messy, and how in the middle of it, you can feel so disoriented and overwhelmed. And I hate saying it's normal. It sounds like a back to school session about puberty. Like, it's normal, but it really is. It's normal. And yet, like, doing it and doing it again, it'll bring the connections in your life, like they'll make them richer, and it'll get rid of that, like, I have to avoid this for 2 years, 3 years, that feeling like that takes up our bandwidth by avoiding these conversations. And that's what I'm like trying to rescue in people, is just sometimes the truth and having it happen is much better than all of the things that we're anticipating might happen.
yeah, and I find that those things that we anticipate, they occasionally do.
Yeah.
But so often they don't. They were just stuff that I was making up in my own mind.
Yes, the stories we tell. We are hardwired for stories, and it's no fault of our own, but like the stories we tell ourselves are like amazing, make amazing movies, books, but often really interfere with truly understanding what the reality we're facing is. And the only way to get through that is to ask someone else, hey, what's going on for you? And this is going on for me, and I wanted to talk about it.
Love it. What a great way to wrap. Caitlin, thanks so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation and your time. Appreciate you putting us on the schedule and doing this with us.
Of course, I had fun too. I didn't get to ask you guys questions. That's the second hour, right? Where I'm like, so Nolan, Aram, what's going on with you guys?
That's right.
That's right. That'll have to be
Okay.
the next one.
That's right.
Well, that's it for us on today's podcast. If you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe to the NEGOTIATEx podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for checking out this video on NEGOTIATEx TV. If you found any value at all, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification icon if you want to be notified of future videos. And then we also have a couple videos over here that you might be interested in checking out. If you in your small business, your team are looking to get negotiations or leadership training, then you can head over to NEGOTIATEx.com and learn more about the coaching services we offer. Thanks, and I'll see you over in the next video.